Welcome to episode 46 of the Landlady Boss podcast. I'm here with Rachel, my sister and co-host. How are you doing, Rachel?
Great. How are you doing, Marie?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm in a busy season, as I'm sure all landladies are. The spring is here and it is time for maintenance, like we talked about last week, and tenant turnover and renewing leases and going through the long list of things to do. So I'm sure everyone is super busy this time of year.
It's busy. It is.
Yes, we want to talk about how to get your vacant units visible to applicants, how to get them filled quickly, and so you don't have that empty downtime. So this is a great time to talk about this because as you are scheduling move-outs and move-ins, you might want to take some of these tips and try them so that you don't have downtime. Our 24-hour tenant turnover mini course, it's $27. I mean, it's not very much at all, but it has so much tips and just actionable advice, things we have learned that really help you to get those turnovers happening quickly so that you don't have downtime, because that's where you lose the money, as we've talked about before. That's a big money loser for landladies.
Yeah, most people have, let's say, a week. So a week of lost rent between tenants is a big deal. What if you had no rent loss? I mean, that's worth its weight in gold. But yeah, so I would say the first thing that when you make an advertisement, if you already have those pictures ready when the apartment was empty, it's really nice. You can even use, they have different programs that you can stage it with your photos. You could put in couches and stuff if you wanted to, but your apartment is really hard to go get pictures mid-lease. If you were going to make, like, they're not renewing, you go to the apartment and you say, okay, well, I need to get some pictures for advertising. You have all of their stuff. They're in the process of packing or whatever, and you're not going to be able to get very good photos. So have your photos already done in advance when the apartment looked really good and it was empty before the people moved in. So you're ready to relist it with photos.
Right. Well, and I'm sure we've all been in the situation where a listing just is not renting. It sits there,
Yes.
you're kind of looking like, what could I do differently? And if you're in a highly competitive market, it could be months maybe before you get it rented, which is really scary and really financially difficult. So, doing some of these things to get your listing to pop is going to be so helpful. And like you're saying, having those pictures ready, because it is frustrating when you go, oh my gosh, I know, okay, I have these people moving out. I know that, it's going to be cleaned and everything's going to be doing any maintenance you need to do. But if you have to wait until all that's done and then go in and get the photos, you could have listed this property a week or two earlier even, or been collecting applications beforehand and setting up tours after the maintenance and the turnover is done. So it's really nice to have a file or something that you can keep those photos in, and then having them not misleading. I mean, if they're 10 years old and the apartment or unit doesn't look like that anymore, make sure they're accurate, of course, but having them in a file that you can just go and upload to a listing is going to be really helpful. And making sure that they're really quality photos, depending on your market, you might want a video, you might want professional photos done, but making sure that, you have the lights all on, you have the curtains all open, getting as much natural light as possible, and even doing that, 0.5 lens angle, really making the room look bigger instead of the normal lens angle, and everything's just really close in your face and you can't see the scope of the room. So that is super important, changing the angle of your camera phone if you're doing it yourself. If you're getting professional ones taken, they're going to have much nicer equipment and do that. Yeah,
Lighten
and having
them.
those, lightening them.
Yeah, most photos I think are too dark. Yeah.
Yes, you want as much natural light as possible, have the lights on, and then lighten them if you can by editing them. That's going to help too. And then making sure you're showing flattering things. I always find it so amusing looking through listings, and I'm like, did you really need to show the dirty hamper kind of overflowing, or maybe like the water heater with all the junk around it, or make sure that it seems obvious, but I see it a lot on listings. Make sure there are areas of the house that you actually want to see or that are
Yeah.
attractive. You know, you don't have to show every nook and cranny either. The main features, bathrooms, kitchens, the living area, you know, maybe the exterior, if it's a very adorable exterior or cute street, or,
Hmm.
you know, show the attractive things about it and not every little thing that.
Right. And try to take the pictures during the day in the interior. And maybe like
Mhm.
as the sun is kind of setting for the exterior. Because if you take the exterior when it's like at noon and it's really, really bright sun, it'll wash out the exterior paint and it won't look as good. Your green grass won't look as green. And pay attention to when you're taking pictures of what the light is and how that affects the house
That's
or
a
the
great
unit. Yeah.
suggestion. Yeah, I think often you don't think about the time of day that you're going to take
Mhm.
the pictures. And I would say time of year. If you can
Yes.
take exterior pictures when there are beautiful
Yeah.
flowers in the
Yeah.
yard and the grass is green and keep that in the file
Yes.
versus in the dead of winter where there's snow 4 feet up and everything is covered
Hmm.
in ice and snow, it's not going to be nearly as flattering or inviting. So, you know, take
Right.
those pictures in flattering light, like you're saying, but also at a good time of year. And so you can pull those pictures out and use them year round.
Exactly. And then the next thing, you have that all in your file, and that's really good. Another thing is you can do like a Google Sheet on that property. And so you have the square footage. You have, does it come with a microwave? Does it come with a dishwasher, washer and dryer? Put all those things on it. Does it have AC? Does it not? What are some, like, what's the age of the house? How many bedrooms? How many bathrooms? Square footage? Those kind of things that you put in your ad. If you already have them set, do you allow pets for that property? How much is that? All of those things are things that you need to put in your ad, and if you already have them in a spreadsheet for that property, super easy for you to be able to put together your ads after.
That's really good advice. And then it's quickly, you're not trying to remember, and you don't have to go back to the property to see, okay, wait, does it have this or does it not? You have that all together. So that's really great advice. Now it comes to the listing. When you have the pictures uploaded and it looks great and everything, the listing, you want a very catchy headline. You want something that catches their attention instead of just, you know, 3 bedroom, 2 bath. You want pet friendly, walkable to shopping, close to schools, something that catches their attention. They're like, oh my gosh, this sounds, you know, family friendly street or quiet cul-de-sac, something that's just going to be different than the normal, like 2 bed, 1 bath, there's carpet.
Mhm. Now, if you're in a place where there's a lot of apartments and you happen to have a townhouse with garages, then that's going to be a huge selling
Yes.
point that it comes with a two-car garage because most people don't have that. So this is another, selling point that you want to make sure that you highlight. And you can use AI if you'd like to. You can get some ideas on text by entering in and say, I have this great apartment, it's walkable. You put in like the things that you're going to write and then just kind of see what things they pop out with. So it might make it catchier. So things that you can add to your ad and that would help.
Definitely, definitely. Feel free to put it into AI and say, hey, make this catchier, make this sound
See what it
better,
says.
or,
Yeah.
you know, whatever. We don't have to come up with this all on our own. But yeah, if you're listing sitting and, you know, you feel like the pictures look really great, yeah, look at the description. Is it boring? Do you read it and you go, this is so generic. I don't know if it's my property or the property next door. You have no idea.
Hmm.
And are you listing the things like you're saying that make it amazing? I've read through some of my listings before that, you know, were just kind of put up there. And then I was reading through it, trying to figure out why it hadn't sold, why it hadn't sold. And, you know, it was just like, wait, we didn't even mention that there's central air or, you know, that there's a washer and dryer in the unit or, you know, all these features that it's like, if you're not listing it, they have to assume that it's not there or else you would have talked about it. Or you're going to waste a
Right.
lot of time just getting lots of questions. Is there a garage? Is there a washer and dryer? And so it's just better to put as much, don't overload them, but as much of information for those features that they're wanting to see so you don't get as many questions either.
Yes, and pay attention to what questions are being texted in by the responders. If everyone's asking you, do you take pets? Do you allow pets? This is going to happen over and over. Make sure you just edit your ad and put in there, we do not allow pets. No smoking, no pets, or whatever that you're getting questions on. Edit your ad so that you can not have people ask that question of you and waste your time and theirs. Just stick it back in the ad and then make sure and include it next time. And then also go through your ad and change a few words every couple days so that it kind of keeps it popping back up, and people that have commented on it or tagged somebody will get updated on it that there's been a change. So this is a different way to keep your listing current.
Yeah, it kind of refreshes it and keeps it popping back up in front of people. And
Mm-hmm.
make sure also, so you have, a really catchy description and
Mm-hmm.
tagline, and you've listed the amenities and it sounds amazing and people are going to want to look at it. But what platforms are you using to put your ad out there, or your unit, to list your unit on? You're going to want to make sure that which platforms are popular in the area that you're in. Some places it's Craigslist where I live, no, but Zillow, everyone's on Zillow, or is it
Yeah.
Facebook Marketplace, or find out which platforms are the popular ones where people go, where the people are looking. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't help if you have this amazing rental and gorgeous pictures and a wonderful write-up, but if it's not out there where people can see it, or if you're just putting a sign in the yard, it's probably not
Mm-hmm.
going to get as many eyes as it could. So really make sure you go where the people are.
And one way you can do that is go and do a Google search for a property that is like yours. So let's just say you have a 3-bedroom, 2-bath apartment, and you list your city. So I'd put 3-bedroom, 2-bath apartment for rent in Rexburg, Idaho, and put that in Google and see what populates. And what's coming up is going to tell you what everybody else who's doing Google searches are going to see. Are they seeing Zillow ads first, apartments.com, any of those? Then that's where you're going to also want to put your ads in. I like Zillow because you can create your ad, and then after you get a tenant, you can deactivate it, and it sits there, and it's so easy to reactivate it. You just click a button and you can reactivate it
Mm-hmm.
when it's ready again, and you just change the date it's available and check the rent information. But I love having it just sitting there ready to repost as needed, because then I only have to put in the information once, and then the next year I can just repopulate that same ad. So I like that.
So helpful. Yeah, you don't have to
Mm-hmm.
recreate it. And if you maybe have an assistant or people that are working with you, or your team, they can also manage these things without you having to check everything, because you've already done it once, right? So it's already there. So that's really helpful to
Yes.
save it in a platform that you're already using.
And some of them, like Zillow and apartments.com, they allow the tenant to apply right then and there. So that's kind of exciting that the applicant can apply, and then you get an email saying that they have applied, and they can do a background check, and you'll get that information. So you can toggle a button that says allow them to apply. And even though I have my own application process on my own website, I still am getting more Zillow applications than I'm getting on my own website. So I'll just download the information from Zillow, upload it to my website, create an applicant, and then move on. But you want to cast the net as wide as possible. So even though it's more inconvenient for me to get applications from Zillow, it's worth it, because maybe they wouldn't have applied if I had that extra step of having them have to come to my website.
That brings up a really good point. When you are looking at your process, put yourself in the shoes of the applicant and then go
Mm-hmm.
through the steps. Is there something that is really inconvenient? Or is there a part of it that's not clear? Is there not a clear call to action? Or do they have to message you before they can even submit an application? Or, so making sure that, okay, it's easy, it's labeled clearly, they can apply quickly, because at the time, if they send out a feeler, if this
Mm-hmm.
is still available or something like that, and they're not able to apply until you send them an invitation to apply. I mean, this is a lot of steps, right? This could take a few
Yeah.
days. And in that time, they could have gone to someone else's listing that click right there, filled it out, submitted it, already got an answer. You want it to be as stress-free and seamless as possible. So take out
Mm-hmm.
any of those barriers that you can find and analyze that. If you have a
Mm-hmm.
unit that's just not, it seems like it's the listing's good and it's priced comparatively and all these things, but it's just not renting quickly,
Right.
go through the process and see, okay, what is the hang up? Because there's probably a step along that way that is preventing people from easily going on.
Do you know, I was having some trouble during the holidays, November, December. Of course, with the holidays, I've got that downturn of applicants,
Mm-hmm.
less people applying. And what I was finding was if it took 2 or 3 days for my manager, who was also busy with the holidays, to get back to the applicants, the interested inquiries, they've already done something or they're not interested or they end up ghosting us. But if she
Mm-hmm.
responded the same day, it was amazing because we would be able to get those people into an application, into the apartment so much more easily and quickly. But if we waited a couple days, we were ghosted from then on. They just would stop responding. So make sure that you are able to respond while they're calling you because they are interested at that moment.
Yeah, you want to strike while the iron's hot for sure, because that's when they're looking.
Yeah.
And if you respond quickly, it shows that you are going to be a more responsive landlord usually. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
if it takes you days to get back to them, they're like, huh, maybe this landlord's not very attentive or responsive. Even if that's not the
Mm-hmm.
truth, it just presents that
Right.
image. So you want to, from the get-go, kind of have that professional persona and
Right.
present yourself as responsive and communicate quickly. So and make sure they understand
Yeah.
what your process is. I would also add to any listing, if you have certain requirements, you may say, and these are our set requirements, so that they're there, so people that
Mm-hmm.
aren't going to qualify don't even go through the process, don't waste their
Mm-hmm.
money.
Yeah, Zillow has a place where you can put what your basic requirements are, and then you can check the box that says like flexible with consideration or something like that, so that if your number is 600 for a credit score, you can put that. And then you also can let them know that you have accommodations if it changes. But that's a really great tip, Marie, because if you do have these certain thresholds that you do not accept applicants, then you're wasting their third party background check application money that they just had to pay $30 to $50,
Mm-hmm.
and then they don't qualify, and they just get frustrated because they're shelling out this money to each of these places, and a simple posting saying that this is what you expect would help them know that they didn't meet that criteria and save you both time.
Yeah, and it wastes your time. I can't tell you
Mm-hmm.
how many applications I've opened over the years, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
going through, and I'm like, they don't even meet our minimum requirements, and I just wasted 5 minutes, 10 minutes, multiply, like it's a waste of everyone's time. So yeah, being very
Yeah.
clear and putting it out there if you have minimum requirements so people know.
This week I did that. I did the whole background check. I called the references, and then I called her on the phone because I had a question about her previous landlord. And then we started talking, and she said, "Wait, you don't have a yard?" And I said, "No, there's no yard. It's townhouses." And she said, "Oh, never mind." And I had just spent all of this time on her
All your due
application,
diligence.
all my due
Shoot.
diligence, and she's
Ah,
like, never mind. And she had already spent, $100 for both of them to apply and all of, anyway, it doesn't matter, but I was
oh
just like,
my.
I mean, it didn't say on my ad that we had a yard. So that was on her, but I don't know how to avoid that sometimes. Sometimes you just can't. But you try to be as clear as possible of your
Mm-hmm.
expectations and what the place includes so that you don't waste time doing the background check, because I did, and it was a waste of my 2 hours. I can't get this back.
Yeah, shoot. That is frustrating. Yeah, so yeah, you want to just list as many things as you can so everyone's coming into it on the same page. Yeah, if you have a limit on pets, you say, or if you only allow certain pets, you say, so you're not
Hmm.
getting down this
Hmm.
road and then they're like, oh wait, I have 3 Komodo dragons and 5 cats and a cougar, oh, well, I
Yeah,
don't allow that, so
right.
just making sure.
Let's say it's empty. If it's empty, you could hold an open house. That's another option, is that you say, okay, on Wednesday from 5 to 7, it's ready to go. There'll be cookies. And so then you start creating appointments with the people who are responding that are interested in seeing it and saying, okay, can you come Wednesday at 5? come at Wednesday at 5:30, and you try to set some up so that you know that your time's not wasted doing the open house. And then you list an
Right.
open house and you blast that out on Facebook so that you can get people who might be interested in just stopping by. And then you put up some signs during that time, so drive by. So you try to catch with the net the people that you make appointments with who've inquired, and then people who
Hmm.
just see it and don't talk to you, and then drive-bys. And if you can get all those people in on that time, hopefully you'll be able to get an applicant that is good and a contract from that one evening. So trying to make those open houses more effective is also helpful. So when you're creating your ads and when you're doing these open houses and when you're doing tours, remember that you are providing housing and have to follow the fair housing rules. And so you cannot be discriminatory on race or nationality, any of the protected statuses, and just
Hmm.
really know the law, because that's going to be important. If you put in your ad families only, you just discriminated on familial status. So these are things that you can get sued on. So
No
make sure
children.
no children, or things that, like, or you're steering. You're just saying like ideal for families, that you're still steering. So it's really, really important that you know the fair housing laws and that you keep them in your ads by not including anything that could be discriminatory.
That is such a good point. You want to be very careful about that. So there are some incentives you can provide for people. If a unit is just not renting, or like you were saying, you're in the winter time, unfortunately you have a vacant unit in a bad time of year to rent, there are some different incentives, move-in
Right.
incentives that you can offer people that could possibly help. And I've seen that before, first month's rent discounted or first month's
Mhm.
rent free. I haven't done
Mhm.
that because I'm in an area that I haven't had to do that. But if you're in a highly
Mhm.
competitive area, that might be something
Mhm.
that you consider doing. What are some other incentives you've used or heard of, Rachel?
Yeah, we've done the $500 off because when I talk to the owner for them to get their financing on these new townhouses, it's really important that they have a certain rent, a contractual rent that they're getting. And so if that's the important thing for the owner, not necessarily that they got the rent the first month, but that they do have that on the contract for their bank, their
Oh,
lending, then
mm-hmm.
then it's okay. I can offer $1,000 off the first month because the person coming in is going to have a contract for the rent that the owner needs. Also, it doesn't tick off the neighbors who you rented the same apartment to for 2000. If they find out that you
Right.
you lowered it for somebody else, they can get upset. So a discount works like that, where it's just kind of a one-time deal, whether it's for 1 month or spread out. It's still just a one-time move-in discount.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why that works. For students, I've done shopping card, like a Walmart card, or a grocery card for student
Mm-hmm.
beds. Just kind of thinking, what do people want? What would appeal to them? You can even make a deal with a local laundry if yours doesn't come with washer and dryers, and you give them codes or something because they live there. You can make a deal with a club that's nearby, so you can add amenities by giving discounts if they go and have get that club membership. So there's different things you can look at by adding to your property without building onto your property. What can you add to the
Right.
package that you offer?
Because you want it to be incentivized, right? You want them to go, oh, wait, if I move here, this is something I'm already using that I don't have to then get. Or maybe
Right.
it's offering free Wi-Fi depending on your clientele. Or
Mhm.
even, I know in some areas, getting utilities in people's names may be a big deterrent, but maybe you include utilities but raise the rent and they're fine
Mhm.
paying more per month, but getting the utilities and the deposit and getting that all set up is maybe a deterrent in certain areas.
Mhm.
You just kind of have to know for your area what people are looking for, what their incentivizes them to move in. So being flexible, kind of finding your niche and knowing what those people are looking for is going to be super helpful and make it so you're not stagnant.
There's another one you can do, which is to lower the deposit. So let's say they have a really high credit
Mm-hmm.
score, they have a perfect payment history in the past, and excellent references for their landlady, their previous one. So if you offer to that applicant or any applicant that meets that criteria a reduced deposit, that can also open doors for people to apply to your place versus some other place.
That's a really good incentive. And just networking also with
Hmm.
local businesses, maybe
Hmm.
realtors, letting them know, hey, I have the rental available, or, businesses get people moving in that need rentals all the time. So finding maybe the big employers in your area and just sending them a packet showing your properties or your units or what you have available or your information so that they can check with you when they have an employee or an executive moving in. So that can be a way to get your units filled too if you can network.
Right. In fact, I would say every year, look at your property and ask yourself, am I using it to the best and maximum potential of this property? Is it better if maybe I made it a short-term rental? What if I furnished it and
Hmm.
increased the rent? What if I started renting it to nurses? What if I talked to the local beauty school and asked if they needed housing for their students and facilitated a contract for that? Am I using this property to its maximum potential? And be willing to pivot if you could use it in a different way.
That's a really good point because it may just be it's not the right fit for that market. You may be
Hmm.
trying to do a long-term rental in a market that needs more midterm or
Hmm.
short-term, or people want more furnished instead of empty and where they have to furnish it. So being able to analyze that market and pivot, if it's just sitting and not getting rented, that may be the issue. And then the last thing I want to point up is the price. If you're doing all these things, you've got great pictures, you've got great visibility, it's on the platforms, people can see it, you've got a lot of interest in it, and it's still not renting, it may be the price. You may
It
have
might
to
be the price.
adjust the
Hmm.
price. So really make sure that you are analyzing your market, looking at comparables there, calling other realtors, other landlords, asking, okay, what are you charging for this and this with this amenities? And just really keep a pulse on the current market there. So, and obviously doing your own online research, you can, with a 10, 15-minute search, you can pretty quickly see, okay, this is what, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house with a garage is going for in a nice neighborhood or something like that. And if you
Right.
are, way over that definitely could be why, you're going to have to try to bring that price down, adjust it
Mhm.
if you want to get it rented.
And by the time you have done a tour with somebody you've texted back and forth a few times, and then they aren't interested, you could just say, hey, no pressure. I just am really curious why you chose a different place. And usually they'll answer. They'll say, oh, we really wanted a yard. We really wanted to have pets. But if they tell you and if enough people are saying, oh, it's because I wish it had a washer and dryer, you might want to buy a used washer and dryer, right? So that feedback can be used
Hmm.
for you to even change your apartment a little bit to match what they're looking for.
Yeah, really try to get some feedback so you can
Yeah.
adapt and change because yeah, it may be something simple.
Hmm.
They just needed that washer and dryer saying, or
Yeah.
they really wanted a fridge if you didn't provide a fridge, or something that you can throw in and
Something
change
easy.
fairly
Right.
easily. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, you're not going to build on a wing to the house if they, wanted a sound studio, but I mean, you're going to be able
Yeah.
to make little tweaks and hopefully cast that net wider. So
Yeah.
those are going to be super helpful. I think these are just great tips that you can just analyze where you're at, see if your listings maybe could use some of these tweaks and then really try to just improve one little thing with
Hmm.
each listing you do. And maybe not do all of them at once if it's super overwhelming, but just say, okay, I'm really going to try to improve the pictures this time, or I'm going to try to get the wordage just right and really try to tweak that. So try to focus on some of these, especially as we are going into the busy spring season. And hopefully you have a very successful renting season ahead of you.
Good luck.
Good luck. Happy renting. And thank you so much for what you do. We know it is a thankless job and it's not always very fun. And we appreciate what you do. You provide housing for people that need it and hopefully places people can call home. So it's a really special job. It's a wonderful job and we need more competent, wonderful landladies. So thank you so much for what you do and the time and effort that you put into that. If you would like more information on some of the free templates we have or our damage inspection form that we have for free on our website, landladyboss.com, head over there and check it out. We also have some different courses that maybe can help you streamline your processes. As we mentioned before, we have the 24-hour no rent loss tenant turnover. I highly recommend that, $27, and you can learn how to systemize and streamline things so that you can have turnovers within 24 hours and not lose any rent. So it is worth every penny, and we've kept it super affordable. There's a great workbook that goes along with it. So check that out. And then we have other courses available too, and that's all at landladyboss.com. So good luck in your endeavors, and thank you so much for what you do. And remember, no one can manage your properties as well as you.